The Marathon Station at the intersection of Route 5 and Crandall Road in Murray County, Georgia, sat at the kind of crossroads that exists in every rural county in the South. Two roads meeting in the middle of nothing, one going north toward the ridge and one going east toward the valley, with a gas station on one corner and a dollar store on the other, and the rest of the scenery provided by hay fields and fence lines and the Blue Ridge foothills stacking up on the horizon like a wall built out of October color. The station had 4 pumps, a single bay car wash that hadn't worked since the summer, and a front window covered in faded stickers for cigarette brands and lottery tickets, and a hand-lettered sign that said, "Live Bait," that had been there so long the tape had yellowed and the letters had faded to suggestions rather than words. Mack, Turnbuckle Boone, was sitting in the bed of his pickup truck at the far end of the Marathon lot at 4:15 on a Thursday afternoon in mid-October, eating a gas station hot dog and watching the road, because that's what you do at the intersection of Route 5 and Crandall Road, when you've finished a 12-hour job and you're too tired to ride home yet, but too wired to sit still. He was 48 years old, 6'1", 270 pounds, built like a man who'd spent his entire adult life pulling things down and cutting things up, because he had. He'd been an arborist for 26 years, a tree man, the kind of man who climbs 80 feet into a dying oak with a chainsaw on his hip and a harness that he trusts more than most people, and takes the tree apart piece by piece from the top down, lowering each section on a rope, while the ground crew guides it past the power lines and the roof and the fence and the 1,000 other things that a falling limb can destroy if the man at the top misjudges the cut by 6 inches. He ran Boone Tree and Land out of Chatsworth, a 3-truck operation that handled everything from storm damage to lot clearing to the kind of precision removals that insurance companies require when a 100-year-old white oak dies in someone's front yard and the canopy is wider than the house. His beard was brown and silver, thick, trimmed to his collarbone, and he kept a climbing carabiner clipped through the left side of it. Not decorative, functional, a habit from the tree that had migrated to the ground and that he'd never broken because his daughter said it made him look like a pirate and his wife said it made him look ridiculous, and he'd decided that both opinions could be true simultaneously. His forearms were sleeved in ink. His left arm carried a massive red oak in full autumn color, the roots wrapping his wrist and the canopy reaching his bicep, with a climbing harness and a handsaw worked into the trunk. His right arm was a chainsaw sleeve, a steel MS-461 rendered in photorealistic detail from his wrist to his elbow, the chain wrapping his forearm like a bracelet, surrounded by wood chips and sawdust rendered in stipple shading. His knuckles were tattooed in block letters, "Limb on the left, drop on the right," the 2 words a ground crew never wants to hear without warning, and the 2 words that defined every day of his working life. He wore a black leather vest with the Ridgeback MC center patch, a razorback hog on a mountain ridge with its hackles raised, his charter member diamond, and a small cross-cut saw pin on his breast pocket that his crew had given him when he'd hit 25 years in the canopy. Subscribe to Asphalt Angels and hit that notification bell, because this story starts with a boy on a bicycle going in circles, and the reason he couldn't stop riding is the reason he couldn't go home. Mack had co-founded the Ridgeback MC in 2011 with 6 other tradesmen out of Murray County, treemen, excavator operators, a farrier, a fencing contractor, the kind of men who worked outdoors 12 months a year and rode for the same reason they worked, because sitting inside made their hands itch and their brains loud. The club had grown to 14 members across Murray, Whitfield, and Gilmer counties, all of them men who made their living from the land in one form or another, cutting it, grading it, fencing it, planting it, the blue-collar horticulture of North Georgia, where the mountains start and the flat ground ends, and the work is always uphill. The club's rule was borrowed from the tree business: measure twice, cut once, and never drop a limb without knowing where it's going to land. Applied to life, this meant pay attention, think before you act, and understand that every action has a landing zone. He was eating his hot dog and watching the road when the boy rode past the first time. A kid on a bicycle, maybe 11 years old. Small frame BMX style bike, the kind you buy at Walmart for $90, blue and silver, with pegs on the rear axle that nobody was standing on. The boy was riding on the shoulder of Route 5, heading east, and he passed the marathon station at a steady pace and disappeared around the bend toward Crandall Road. Mack didn't think about it. Kid on a bike. Thursday afternoon in October. School had been out for an hour. Normal. 4 minutes later, the boy rode past again. Same direction. East on Route 5. Except he hadn't come back from the east. He'd come from the west, which meant he'd ridden a loop, down Route 5, turned somewhere, come back on Crandall or the side road behind the dollar store, and was now passing the gas station again, heading east. Mack watched. The boy passed. The blue and silver bike. The same kid. 7 minutes later. Again. West to east on Route 5. Past the marathon station. The same loop. The same pace. The same boy. If this story has touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Asphalt Angels. Because this boy rode in circles for 3 hours, and the reason he kept riding is the reason everything else in this story happened. Mack sat in his truck bed and he watched. He was a tree man. His job was to look at something for a long time before he touched it. You don't climb a tree without studying it first. You walk the canopy line. You check the lean. You look for dead wood, for cracks, for the cavities where the rot lives behind bark that still looks solid. You read the tree the way a doctor reads an X-ray, not for what's visible, but for what the visible things tell you about what isn't. He read the boy. The bike was too small, not dramatically. The boy wasn't riding a toddler's bike, but his knees came up too high on the upstroke, which meant he'd outgrown it, or it had been bought for a younger version of him, and nobody had replaced it. His clothes were school clothes, khaki pants, a polo shirt, the uniform of a charter school or a private school or one of the county schools that had adopted dress codes. His backpack was still on, a black backpack with the straps over both shoulders, riding heavy, bouncing on his back with each pedal stroke. He hadn't gone home, school clothes still on, backpack still loaded, 3 hours after school let out, riding the same half-mile loop past a gas station at a rural crossroads. The fourth pass, Mack started timing. 7 minutes per loop. Consistent. The boy wasn't speeding up or slowing down. He wasn't riding to a destination and coming back. He was riding a circuit, the same route, the same speed, the way a horse walks a paddock fence when the gate is locked and there's nowhere to go but around. The fifth pass. The sixth. The seventh. At the eighth pass, roughly an hour, the boy slowed as he approached the marathon lot. He looked at Mack's truck. He looked at Mack sitting in the truck bed. He looked at the vest. He didn't stop. He kept riding. But the looking was deliberate, not the casual glance of a kid noticing a vehicle, but the searching look of someone evaluating an option. "That kid's been riding past here for an hour," the cashier said, through the open door of the station. Her name was Darla. She'd worked the counter since the Bush administration, the second one, and she noticed everything the way gas station cashiers in small counties notice everything, which is completely and without comment. "I know," Mack said. "He's been out there since I came on at 3. 3? 3:15. I saw him when I pulled in. He was already riding." 3:15. It was now 5:30. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Same loop, same bike, same kid. If you're watching this story, hit that hype button right now. It's free, takes 1 second, and helps these stories reach the people who need them. Now, back to the story. At 5:47, past number 20-something, Mack had lost count. The boy stopped. Not at the gas station. He stopped on the shoulder of Route 5, 50 feet from the marathon lot, straddling his bike, 1 foot on the ground, looking at Mack. The distance between them was the distance between a decision and its execution. Close enough to talk, far enough to run. Mack didn't get up. He didn't wave. He didn't call out. He sat in his truck bed with the empty hot dog wrapper beside him, and he looked back at the boy the way he looked at a tree he was studying. Steady, patient, without urgency, the look that says, "I see you, and I'm not going anywhere, and the next move is yours." The boy rode into the lot. He stopped his bike 10 feet from the truck. He put both feet on the ground. He didn't get off. He straddled the frame, hands on the grips, ready to ride if he needed to. "You've been riding for a while," Mack said. "Yeah." "Where you headed?" "Nowhere." "Nowhere takes a long time on a bike." The boy almost smiled. "Yeah." "You live around here?" The boy's face changed, not dramatically, a tightening around the eyes, a setting of the jaw, the subtle rearrangement of features that happens when a question touches something that hurts. "I live up Crandall Road, but I'm not going home." "Okay. You don't have to go home. You want to tell me why?" "Because Keith is home, and when Keith is home and he's been drinking, it's better if I'm not there. So I ride. I ride until it's dark, and then I go home, because he's usually passed out by dark. But today he started early. He was already drinking when I got home from school. So I left, and I've been riding, and it's not dark yet." Mack sat with that. A boy on a bike, riding circles around a gas station, waiting for dark, waiting for a man to pass out, timing his homecoming to the bottom of a bottle. The circles weren't aimless. They were strategic. They were a clock, each loop measuring the time between now and safe, between daylight and dark, between sober angry and drunk unconscious. Does Keith hit? He throws things. He threw a plate at my mom last week, and it hit the wall, and a piece of it cut her arm, and she told the ER it was a cooking accident. He grabbed me by my shirt one time and pushed me into the doorframe, and I had a bruise on my shoulder, and he told my mom I fell off my bike. The boy looked at his bike. "I didn't fall off my bike. I don't fall off my bike. I've been riding this bike since I was 8. "What's your name?" "Jude." "Jude. I'm Mack. People call me Turnbuckle." "Why?" "Because I use turnbuckles to rig trees when I'm taking them down, and one time I forgot to unhook one, and it flew off the tree and hit me in the helmet, and my crew said the tree was trying to name me. So now I'm Turnbuckle." Jude smiled, small, the muscles remembering. "Jude, I'm going to sit here with you as long as you want, and when you're ready, I'm going to make some calls to people whose job it is to make sure Keith doesn't throw plates at your mom or push you into doorframes. But nothing happens until you say, 'You rode here, you stopped here, this is your call.' If you call somebody, Keith's going to know, and it'll be worse. Not if Keith's not there anymore. They can do that? They can do that. If Asphalt Angels has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. Just a couple bucks a month keeps these stories coming. Links below. Now, back to the story. Jude put down his kickstand. He sat on the curb next to the air hose. He didn't take off his backpack. He kept it on. The weight of a school day still on his shoulders, the straps cutting into his polo shirt, the backpack full of textbooks and notebooks, and the things that belong to the version of his life that happens between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. when he's inside a building with adults who follow rules. Mack texted the Ridgeback group chat. "Marathon Station, Route 5 and Crandall. Kid on a bike. Been riding circles for 3 hours. Can't go home. Domestic. Need brothers, and I need somebody who knows Murray County DSS. GPS pin. Rake responded first. Vice President, excavator operator. 10 minutes. Then Post from Chatsworth. Then Dozer and Stump together. Then Wedge from Elijah. 5 riders, all of them pulling off job sites or out of driveways or away from dinner tables within 3 minutes. Mack called Murray County Sheriff's Office at 5:58 p.m. He described the situation: a juvenile male, approximately 11, reporting domestic violence at a residence on Crandall Road. The dispatcher asked if the child was injured. Mack looked at Jude, sitting on the curb with his backpack on, his school clothes wrinkled, his shoes worn at the toes, a boy who'd been riding a too-small bike for 3 hours because the alternative was a doorframe, and a man who'd started drinking before his stepson got home from school. He's not injured, but he will be if he goes home tonight. Rake's Softdale pulled into the marathon lot 9 minutes later. Then Post on his Dyna. Then Dozer and Stump, side by side. Then Wedge, rolling in slow. 5 motorcycles parked along the fence line of the lot. 5 large bearded men in black leather vests with tattooed forearms standing near their bikes, holding gas station coffees, watching the road, giving Jude the perimeter he'd been riding for 3 hours. Except now the perimeter had walls, and the walls had vests, and nobody was getting through. Jude looked at the bikes. He looked at the men. He looked at Mack. Are they all like you? Everyone. My mom says bikers are dangerous. Your mom's stepdad throws plates at her. I'd say she might want to recalibrate her definition of dangerous. Jude laughed. A real one. Short, surprised, the sound of a kid hearing an adult say the obvious thing that nobody in his life had said out loud. The Murray County Sheriff's Unit arrived at 6:22 p.m. Deputy Carla Vickers, 10 years with the department, the only female deputy in the county, took Jude's statement in the marathon lot, sitting on the curb next to him, because she'd learned years ago that kids talk more when you're at their level and less when you're standing over them. Jude told her what he'd told Mack: the plate, the doorframe, the riding in circles, the waiting for dark. He told her something he hadn't told Mack. Keith had a gun, a pistol, kept in the nightstand in the master bedroom. And when Keith drank, sometimes he took the gun out and set it on the kitchen table while he was yelling. And he didn't point it at anyone, but he didn't have to, because a gun on a table during an argument is a sentence that doesn't need a verb. The sheriff's unit went to the Crandall Road residence at 6:45 p.m. The house was a single-story rancher set back from the road with a gravel driveway and a detached garage and a satellite dish on the roof and a blue recycling bin by the mailbox that was full of empty bourbon bottles, not beer cans, not wine bottles, bourbon bottles, the kind that cost $30 each and accumulate fast when a man starts drinking before his stepson gets home from school. Keith Allen Proctor, 40, was in the kitchen. He was intoxicated. There was a pistol on the kitchen table, a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield, loaded, one in the chamber, the safety off. He was arrested on charges of domestic assault, child endangerment, and possession of a firearm while intoxicated. Jude's mother, Tammy Felton, was in the bedroom. She had a healing laceration on her left forearm, the plate from the previous week, and a demeanor that Deputy Vickers described in her report as resigned and emotionally flat, consistent with prolonged domestic abuse. She didn't cry when they arrested Keith. She sat on the bed and stared at the wall and said, "Is Jude okay?" Jude is sitting in a gas station parking lot with 6 bikers and a bicycle. He's been riding in circles since 3 o'clock because he didn't want to come home. Tammy closed her eyes. The expression on her face wasn't surprise. It was the expression of a woman who had known her son was riding circles and had been unable to stop it, and had been unable to stop the reason for it, and had been living inside that knowledge the way you live inside a house with a gun on the table, carefully, quietly, with the constant awareness that the thing you're afraid of is always in the room. Tammy's mother, Gail Felton, drove from Dalton, 25 minutes south on I-75, and arrived at the Marathon station at 7:15 p.m. The sky was dark. The parking lot was lit by the canopy fluorescents and the headlights of 5 motorcycles parked along the fence. Jude was sitting on the curb. His backpack was off for the first time in 4 hours. Sitting on the ground beside him, the straps loose, the weight finally put down. Gail got out of her car. She walked to the curb. She looked down at Jude and she said, "Baby, how long have you been riding?" "Since 3. 3 o'clock? 3:15. Gail's face did the thing that grandmothers' faces do when the math lands. The 4 hours, the circles, the waiting for dark, the strategy of an 11-year-old who turned a bicycle into a survival tool. She sat down on the curb next to him. She didn't hug him first. She sat beside him, and she put her hand on his backpack. Not on him, on the backpack, on the thing he'd been carrying. And she said, "You don't have to ride anymore. We're going to my house. Your mom's coming too. And the bike fits in my trunk." Jude leaned into her. Sideways, the way a tree leans into a cable when the tension is set right. Not falling, transferring load, letting something stronger take the weight. Gail put her arm around him, and they sat on the curb in the Marathon lot at 7:20 p.m., while 6 men in leather vests stood along the fence and looked at the dark and said nothing, because some moments don't need commentary. They need witnesses. Mack walked over. Gail looked up. She had tears on her face and steel in her jaw, and the combination of the two was the most honest expression Mack had seen in a long time. "Thank you. I've been trying to get her to leave for a year. She wouldn't leave because she said Jude needed stability. I told her stability with a man like that isn't stability, it's a countdown. But she wouldn't hear it." She paused. "My grandson has been riding his bike in circles around a gas station for 3 hours because that was safer than going home. That's what stability looked like." Keith Proctor was convicted on all charges. Tammy and Jude live with Gail in Dalton now, in a house on a street with a sidewalk where Jude rides his bike in straight lines to a friend's house 3 blocks away and turns around when he wants to, not when the dark tells him to. Tammy works at a veterinary supply company. She answers her own phone. She locks her own doors. She has a key to every room in the house, and so does Jude, and so does Gail, and nobody else. The Ridgeback MC of Murray County, Georgia now sponsors a program called Circle Back. In partnership with gas stations, convenience stores, and small businesses along rural routes in Murray, Whitfield, and Gilmer counties, they've trained cashiers and store clerks to recognize the signs: a kid who lingers too long, a kid who rides the same loop, a kid who sits in a parking lot after school with a backpack still on. The protocol is simple: offer water, offer a seat, and call the number on the card behind the register. The card has the Ridgeback MC phone line, the Murray County Sheriff's non-emergency number, and the words, "If a kid can't go home, give them a place to stop." At every gas station in the program, there's a small decal in the window, a razorback hog on a ridge, and underneath it, "You can stop here." Jude Felton is 12 now. He has a new bike, a proper full-size mountain bike that Mack and the Ridgeback MC bought him at their annual toy run. A bike that fits. A bike his knees don't hit the handlebars on. A bike built for going somewhere instead of going nowhere. He rides it to school when the weather's good. He rides it to his friend's house. He rides it on the trails behind Gail's neighborhood, where the path goes through the woods and comes out at a creek, and the only circles are the ones the hawks make overhead. He doesn't ride circles anymore. He doesn't have to. He rides in straight lines now to places he chooses, and he comes home when he wants to, not when the dark tells him it's safe. Mack still stops at the Marathon station. He still parks in the far corner. He still eats the hot dog, and he still watches the road, not for trucks or bikes or anything in particular, but for the thing he wasn't looking for the first time and found anyway. A kid on a bike going nowhere at a speed that looks like somewhere, riding the same loop over and over, waiting for the dark, waiting for the bottle to empty, waiting for someone to sit in a truck bed long enough to see the pattern. Be the one who counts the laps. Thank you for watching this story. If it reminded you that a kid riding in circles isn't playing, he's waiting, please share it. Subscribe to Asphalt Angels for more stories, proving that sometimes the bravest thing a kid can do is just keep pedaling. Tell us in the comments, have you ever seen a kid riding circles?